The smell hit Elena first. Bleach, lemon polish, and underneath it all, the faint mustiness of old money that no amount of cleaning could ever quite erase. She pushed her supply cart down the marble hallway of the Russo mansion, her shoulders aching from 4 hours of scrubbing bathrooms that were bigger than her entire apartment. This was her 3rd week working for Castellano Elite Services, the cleaning company that serviced Chicago's wealthiest homes. The pay was decent, better than the grocery store, but every shift reminded Elena exactly where she stood in the world's hierarchy. She was 25 years old with a nursing degree she couldn't use because her student loans had gone into default after her mother's cancer treatment. So instead of saving lives, she scrubbed toilets for people who probably spent more on a single dinner than she made in a month. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. The Russo estate was her Friday assignment. 18,000 square feet of imported marble, crystal chandeliers, and art that looked like it belonged in museums. Elena had learned to move through these spaces like a ghost, invisible, silent, forgettable. That's what rich people wanted from their help. They wanted the mess to disappear without ever having to acknowledge the person making it happen. She checked her phone. 3:15. If she finished the East Wing by 4, she could catch the early bus and maybe pick up a shift at the diner tonight. Her rent was due in 5 days, and she was still $200 short. Elena grabbed her spray bottle and entered the library, a 2-story room lined with books that probably had never been read. She was wiping down the mahogany desk when she heard it so faint she almost missed it. A thump from below. She froze, listening. The mansion was supposed to be empty. Mr. Russo, the owner, was away on business. His wife had died 2 years ago. The staff had been dismissed for the day, which is why Elena was here alone, doing the deep clean that the regular housekeepers didn't have time for. Another thump, definitely coming from beneath her feet. Elena's heart rate picked up. The basement. She'd been told explicitly on her first day, the basement is off limits. Don't go down there. Don't even think about it. She should ignore it. Finish her work, collect her paycheck, go home. Whatever was in that basement wasn't her business. Rich people had their secrets, and Elena had learned long ago that curiosity didn't pay the bills, it just got you fired. But then she heard something else. Not a thump this time. A cry. Muffled, desperate, distinctly human. Someone was down there. Elena's hands trembled as she set down the spray bottle. Every rational part of her brain screamed to walk away. But she thought of her mother, lying in that hospital bed, begging the nurses for help that came too slowly. She thought of all the times she'd needed someone to notice, to care, to do something. The basement door was in the kitchen, hidden behind a panel that looked like part of the cabinetry. Elena had only noticed it because she'd seen one of the regular housekeepers emerging from it during her first week, looking pale and shaken. "Don't ever go down there," the woman had whispered. "Bad things happen to people who ask questions in this house." Elena's hand hovered over the panel. She could still leave. Should leave. The cry came again. Louder this time. Anguished. Elena pushed the panel. It swung open, revealing a staircase descending into darkness. No light switch that she could see. She pulled out her phone, turned on the flashlight, and started down. The stairs were old wood, creaking under her weight. The air grew colder with each step, and that musty smell intensified into something worse. Neglect, dampness, and underneath it all, the sharp scent of fear. At the bottom, her phone's light swept across a large space filled with storage boxes, old furniture, and Elena's breath caught. A cage. An actual cage, the kind you'd see at a zoo, taking up the far corner of the basement, and inside it, huddled on a thin mattress, was a girl. She couldn't have been older than 10, with dark hair matted and tangled, wearing a dirty nightgown that might have once been white. Her face was tear-streaked, her eyes wide with terror as Elena's light found her. For a moment, neither of them moved. Elena's mind struggled to process what she was seeing. This couldn't be real. This couldn't be happening. Not in a mansion worth millions. Not in a home that hosted charity galas and political fundraisers. The girl's mouth opened, forming words, but no sound came out. She was trying to speak, her hands moving in quick, desperate gestures that Elena didn't understand. Sign language. The girl was deaf. "Oh my God," Elena whispered. She rushed forward her, phone clattering to the floor as she reached the cage. Her hands found the lock, a heavy padlock that required a key. "It's okay, sweetie. It's okay. I'm going to get you out." The girl's hands moved faster, more frantically. Her face was gaunt, cheeks hollow, like she hadn't been eating properly. How long had she been down here? Elena grabbed the padlock, yanking it uselessly. She needed something to break it. She spun around, searching the basement with her phone's light. There, a toolbox on a workbench. She ran to it, dumping out the contents. A hammer, screwdrivers, pliers. She grabbed the heaviest hammer and ran back to the cage. "Cover your face," Elena mimed, holding up the hammer. The girl understood, turning away and covering her head with her arms. Elena swung the hammer at the lock. Once, twice. The sound echoed through the basement like gunshots. 3 times. 4. On the 5th swing, the lock broke apart with a metallic shriek. Elena threw open the cage door. The girl scrambled out, nearly falling, and Elena caught her. The child was lighter than she should be, her body trembling violently. She buried her face in Elena's shoulder, and Elena felt wetness soaking through her shirt tears. "You're safe now," Elena said, even though the girl couldn't hear her. "I've got you. Nobody's going to hurt you anymore." The girl's hands moved again, signing something Elena desperately wished she could understand. But even without knowing the language, the message was clear in the child's desperate eyes. "Please don't leave me." "I won't," Elena promised. "I swear I won't leave you." She pulled out her phone to call 911, but before she could dial, she heard the sound that made her blood run cold. A door opening upstairs, footsteps on the marble floor, heavy, purposeful, multiple people, and a voice, deep and commanding, that seemed to fill the entire house. "I don't care what the contractor says. I want the security system upgraded by next week. If someone can walk onto my property without triggering an alert, then the system is useless." Elena's heart stopped. Mr. Russo. He was home early. The girl in her arms went rigid, her fingers digging into Elena's shoulders. Her whole body shook with a fear so visceral that Elena could feel it in her bones. The footsteps moved through the house above them. Elena heard multiple voices now, men, maybe 3 or 4 of them. They were heading toward the kitchen, toward the basement door. "Sir, about the shipment from Detroit," another voice began. "Not now, Vincent. First, I need to check on..." The words cut off. Elena heard the exact moment they discovered the open panel. The sudden silence was worse than any alarm. Then, quietly, dangerously, "Someone's in my house." Elena looked at the broken lock on the floor, at the open cage, at the terrified child clinging to her. There was no explaining this away. No story she could tell that would make this okay. She'd just broken into a Mafia boss's basement and freed his daughter from a cage. And now he was coming. The footsteps on the stairs were measured, controlled, not running that would suggest panic, and men like Dante Russo didn't panic. They eliminated problems with surgical precision. Elena backed toward the far corner of the basement, the girl wrapped in her arms. Her mind raced through impossible options. There was only one staircase. No windows, they were too far underground. No other exits that she could see. They were trapped. The footsteps reached the bottom of the stairs. A flashlight beam cut through the darkness, landing first on the broken lock, then on the open cage, then sweeping across the basement until it found Elena. She squeezed her eyes shut, holding the girl tighter, waiting for she didn't even know what. A gunshot? A threat? Violence? Instead, she heard something she didn't expect. "Isabella." The voice wasn't angry. It was broken. Elena opened her eyes. The man standing 15 feet away was younger than she'd expected, maybe late 30s, with dark hair silvering at the temples and a face that would have been handsome if it wasn't carved from stone. He wore an expensive suit that probably cost more than Elena's car, and his eyes, gray, sharp, devastating, were fixed not on Elena, but on the girl in her arms. "Izzy, it's Papa," he said, and his voice cracked on the word. He took a step forward. The girl Isabella pressed harder against Elena, making a sound Elena had never heard before. Not quite a scream, not quite a moan, but something primal and terrified. Dante Russo stopped. If you find this story engaging, please take a moment to subscribe and enable notifications. It helps us continue producing in-depth content like this. The pain that flashed across his face was so raw, so real, that Elena's certainty wavered. This wasn't the face of a man who'd caged his own child. This was the face of a father whose daughter was afraid of him. 3 more men appeared at the bottom of the stairs, all armed, all dangerous looking. One of them, older with silver hair, spoke first. Boss, who the hell is everyone out? Dante's voice was quiet but absolute. Now, but sir, out, Vincent, or you'll be cleaning the basement for the next month. The men retreated. Elena could hear them on the stairs, their confusion and concern evident in their whispered conversation. But they obeyed. That's what you did when Dante Russo gave an order. When they were alone, truly alone, Dante raised his hands slowly, palms out. The universal gesture of surrender. Please, he said, and the words seemed to cost him everything. Please don't be afraid. I'm not going to hurt you. His eyes went to his daughter. Either of you. You locked her in a cage. Elena's voice shook but held firm. A child. Your child. I know what it looks like. Dante's jaw tightened. But you don't understand. I understand that she's terrified. I understand that she's been down here long enough to be half-starved. I understand that you're a monster. The words hung in the air between them. Elena waited for the explosion, for the violence she'd been expecting since the moment she heard his footsteps. Instead, Dante Russo did something that shocked her more than anything else that had happened today. He sat down on the basement floor. Just sat, right there on the cold concrete, making himself smaller, less threatening. His expensive suit would be ruined, but he didn't seem to care. You're right, he said quietly. I am a monster, but not for the reason you think. Isabella's hands moved, signing something rapid and desperate. Dante's face crumpled. You understand sign language? Elena asked. It's the only way we can talk. His eyes never left his daughter. She's been deaf since birth. For 10 years, it was just us against the world. Her mother died in childbirth. I learned to sign before she could even walk. I learned everything, therapies, schools, how to make sure she had everything she needed. His voice dropped to almost a whisper. I thought I was protecting her. By locking her in a cage? By keeping her away from the people who want to hurt her. Dante finally looked at Elena directly, and she saw something in his eyes that made her breath catch. Not cruelty, desperation. 3 months ago, someone tried to kidnap her from her bedroom. They got past my security, past my guards, and they had their hands on her before we stopped them. She hasn't felt safe since. She won't sleep in her room, won't stay anywhere with windows or doors she can't control. Elena's arms tightened around Isabella. So you put her in a cage? She asked me to. The admission seemed to destroy him. She signed it, over and over. Make me a safe place where nobody can get in. Lock it so the bad men can't take me. She was having panic attacks every night, screaming without sound, hurting herself trying to feel safe. His voice broke. So I built her what she asked for, a space she could control, where she could lock herself in and absolutely know that nobody could reach her. Elena's certainty faltered. She looked down at Isabella, really looked at her. The girl's hands were moving again, slower now. And even without understanding sign language, Elena could see it wasn't fear in her gestures. It was communication. Explanation. The key, Elena said slowly. Where's the key to the lock? Dante reached into his pocket and pulled out a small key on a chain. She keeps it with her. I gave her 3 copies. One on that chain around her neck that you probably can't see. One hidden in the cage. One in my pocket in case of emergency. He held up the key. I can't lock her in. Only she can lock herself in. Elena's mind reeled. She looked at the cage again, seeing it differently now. The mattress wasn't thin. It was a memory foam pad with expensive linens. There were books stacked neatly in the corner. Art supplies, a tablet, water bottles, snacks. This wasn't a prison. It was a panic room. The nightgown, Elena said. She won't let the housekeepers near her. Won't let anyone touch her or help her bathe or change clothes. Only me, and even then. Dante's hands clenched into fists. She's getting worse. The therapists say she's developing severe agoraphobia on top of the PTSD. She hasn't left the basement in 3 weeks. I come down here every morning, every night, bringing food she barely touches, trying to convince her that she's safe, that I'll protect her. Isabella's hands moved again, and Dante's eyes filled with tears he didn't let fall. What is she saying? Elena asked. She says you smell like her mother. His voice was barely audible. Like vanilla and something else she can't name. She says you're the first person who's touched her in 3 months who didn't feel like danger. He looked at Elena with something that might have been hope. She says you saved her. I didn't save her from you. Elena's certainty was crumbling, being replaced by something more complicated. I saved her from being alone. Yes. Dante stood, slowly, keeping his movements careful. Miss Elena Castellano. His eyes sharpened. The cleaning service. You work for Antonio Castellano's company. I work for the cleaning company, Elena corrected. I don't know who owns it. Your boss is my cousin. That's why I use his service family loyalty. Dante took a careful step closer. Elena, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Can you do that? Elena nodded, still holding Isabella, who had finally stopped trembling. Are you going to call the police? The question hung in the air. Elena thought about what she'd seen, what she'd learned. A father desperate to help his traumatized daughter. A child so broken by fear that she'd asked to be locked away. A situation that looked like abuse but might actually be survival. She thought about what would happen if she called 911. Isabella would be taken away, put in the system. Separated from the one person she trusted. Examined by strangers, touched by people she didn't know. Questioned by authorities who wouldn't understand sign language or PTSD or what it meant to be deaf in a hearing world. She'd be helped, yes, but she'd also be destroyed. No, Elena heard herself say. I'm not calling anyone. Dante's relief was palpable. Thank you. I'll have Vincent arrange a payment for your discretion. 20,000? 30? I don't want your money. The words surprised Elena as much as they seemed to surprise Dante. But I want something else. Name it. Elena looked down at Isabella, who was watching her with those dark, frightened eyes. I want to help her. Really help her. No locked rooms, no isolation, no matter how safe it feels. She needs to learn that the world isn't only danger, that there are people who won't hurt her. She has therapists. She has people who treat her like a patient, a problem to solve. Elena's voice was firm. She needs someone who sees her as a person first, someone who doesn't have an agenda or a paycheck, or clinical detachment. You're describing a friend, Dante said slowly. And friends don't work for money. I'm describing someone who gives a damn. Elena met his eyes. I have a nursing degree. I know basic child psychology. I learned some ASL in school, not enough to be fluent, but enough to start. And more than that, I know what it's like to feel helpless and alone and like nobody sees you. Dante studied her for a long moment. You're asking me to let a stranger into my daughter's life, into my home, into my family. I'm asking you to let me try what clearly isn't working right now. Isabella's hands moved, pulling at Elena's shirt, signing something urgent. Dante translated, his voice thick. She says you're warm, that she's been cold for so long and you're warm. He closed his eyes briefly. She's asking if you'll stay. Elena looked at this child who'd been so desperate to feel safe that she'd locked herself in a cage. She thought of her overdue rent, her mounting bills, her practical, responsible life that had led exactly nowhere. Yes, Elena said, I'll stay. Getting Isabella upstairs turned out to be harder than freeing her from the cage. The moment Elena suggested they leave the basement, Isabella's whole body went rigid. Her hands flew in rapid signs, her face pale with panic. Dante translated quietly, his voice strained. She says the bad men are up there, that they can see through windows, that they're always watching, always waiting. Elena knelt down so she was eye level with the girl. She'd learned exactly 3 signs during her brief ASL course in nursing school, and she hoped she remembered them correctly. She pointed to herself, then made a motion like wrapping her arms around something, then pointed to Isabella. I. Protect. You. Isabella stared at her, processing. Her hands moved hesitantly, a question Elena couldn't understand. She's asking how, Dante said softly. How can you protect her when even I can't? Elena thought for a moment, then did something that probably broke every rule of wealthy household etiquette. She started unbuttoning her cleaning service uniform shirt. What are you? Dante turned away immediately, gentlemanly instinct kicking in. Underneath the shirt, Elena wore a simple white tank top. She held out the shirt to Isabella. Put this on, over your nightgown. Isabella's eyes widened, confused. It's camouflage. Elena explained, even though the girl couldn't hear her words. She mimed putting on the shirt, then hunching down, making herself small. You look like me, like someone who belongs here, someone who's invisible. Understanding flickered in Isabella's dark eyes. She took the shirt, her fingers trembling as she pulled it on. It was huge on her small frame, hanging almost to her knees, but that was the point. She looked like a child playing dress-up in her mother's clothes. Or if you squinted in the right light, like a small person in a work uniform. Elena pulled her hair back, into a tight ponytail, then gently took Isabella's tangled hair and did the same, using the elastic from her own hair. She grabbed a cleaning rag from her abandoned cart and tucked it into Isabella's hand. "There," Elena said, signing the word "good" as best she could remember. "Now you're part of my crew." Dante was watching her with an expression Elena couldn't quite read. Surprise, maybe. Or something deeper. "You think pretending she's a cleaning girl will make her feel safe?" he asked quietly. "I think feeling invisible is better than feeling hunted." Elena stood, offering her hand to Isabella. "Rich people never look at the help. Trust me. I could walk through this house carrying the Hope Diamond and nobody would notice." Isabella took her hand. Small fingers wrapped around Elena's, gripping tight enough to hurt. Together, they started toward the stairs. Each step was an ordeal. Isabella would take one step, pause, shake, take another. Her breathing was shallow, rapid, the beginning of a panic attack. Elena stopped, pulling the girl close, letting her bury her face in Elena's side until the shaking subsided. Dante followed several steps behind, giving them space, but Elena could feel his tension like a physical force. Every protective instinct he had was probably screaming at him to sweep Isabella into his arms and carry her to safety. But he held back, letting Elena lead, and she respected him for that. It took 15 minutes to climb stairs that should have taken 30 seconds. At the top, Vincent and 2 other men waited. All 3 straightened when they saw Dante emerge, but their eyes went wide when Elena and Isabella appeared behind him. "Izzy," Vincent breathed. The silver-haired man's tough exterior cracked. "Cristo. Izzy, you came upstairs." Isabella pressed closer to Elena, but she didn't run. That was progress. "Everyone back up," Dante commanded quietly. "Give them space." The men retreated immediately, but Elena could see the emotions playing across their faces. These weren't just employees. They were family in the way that mattered in this world, bound by loyalty, history, and something deeper than blood. Elena guided Isabella through the kitchen, hyper-aware of every window, every door, every potential threat the girl might perceive. The mansion felt different now, not opulent, but exposed. Too many glass surfaces, too many ways for eyes to peer in. "Where's her bedroom?" Elena asked. "Second floor, east wing," Dante said. "But she won't go there. She hasn't been in that room since. Show me anyway." They climbed the grand staircase, Isabella's grip on Elena's hand tightening with each step. The house was a maze of hallways and doors, each one probably leading to rooms larger than Elena's entire apartment building. The wealth on display was almost obscene art that belonged in museums, furniture that looked too expensive to sit on, rugs that cost more than Elena made in a year. Isabella's room was at the end of a long hallway, the door closed. Dante opened it, and Elena understood immediately why the girl refused to return. The room was beautiful, a princess's dream with a canopy bed, pastel walls, shelves full of dolls and books. But it had 3 large windows, all facing the garden. The security bars on the outside did nothing to ease the exposed feeling. Anyone standing in that garden could look right in. "The kidnappers came through that window," Dante said quietly, pointing to the middle one. "Cut the bars, broke the glass. They were inside before the alarm even sounded." Elena looked at the room through Isabella's eyes. This wasn't a sanctuary. It was a cage with prettier bars, somewhere you were told you should feel safe but didn't. Somewhere you were expected to sleep while danger pressed against the glass. "She needs a different room," Elena said firmly. "One without windows, or at least one where the windows face something other than ground level. I've offered. She needs you to choose it for her, to take control of the decision so she doesn't have to." Elena turned to face him. "She's 10 years old, Dante. She shouldn't have to design her own security system. That's too much responsibility for a child." Something shifted in Dante's expression. "You're right. I've been so focused on giving her choices, on not being controlling, that He stopped. "I'll prepare the guest suite in the West Tower. 3rd floor, windows facing the lake. No ground access." "Good. And until it's ready, where does she sleep?" "She doesn't. She stays in the basement, in the cage, with the key." His voice was hollow. That's been her night for 3 months. Isabella tugged on Elena's hand. When Elena looked down, the girl was signing something, her movements slow and deliberate, like she was trying to be understood by someone who didn't speak her language. Elena caught a few signs she recognized. You, stay, please. I'll stay tonight, Elena heard herself promise. We'll camp out somewhere safe together. Deal? Isabella nodded. And for the first time since Elena had found her, something that might have been a smile ghosted across her face. By 6 p.m., Elena had transformed the mansion's library into a temporary sanctuary. She'd pulled the heavy velvet curtains closed over the windows, blocking out the world. She'd pushed 2 leather couches together to create a makeshift sleeping area, piling them with blankets and pillows that the housekeeper, a stern woman named Mrs. Chen, had provided with obvious disapproval. Mr. Russo's books are worth more than most houses, Mrs. Chen had muttered, watching Elena rearrange priceless first editions to make room for their camp. If anything gets damaged, then send me the bill, Elena had replied evenly. Now, as night fell over Chicago, Elena sat on the couch bed with Isabella curled against her side. Dante had brought them dinner, chicken soup, that Isabella had actually eaten, a small victory that made Dante's eyes shine with unshed tears. She ate, he'd said, almost to himself. She never eats anymore. She was comfortable, Elena had replied. Sometimes that matters more than what's on the plate. Now Dante sat in a leather chair across from them, watching his daughter with an intensity that was both touching and heartbreaking. Vincent had briefed him on security updates, increased patrols, new cameras, background checks on every staff member. The conversation had been clinical, professional, but Elena could hear the fear underneath. Someone had gotten past Dante Russo's defenses once. He was terrified they'd do it again. Isabella's breathing had finally evened out into sleep. Her small body was relaxed for the first time all day, her fingers still tangled in Elena's shirt, like she was afraid Elena might disappear. You're good with her, Dante said quietly. Natural. I had practice. My little cousin had anxiety after her parents divorced. She used to have panic attacks, so bad she'd pass out. Elena stroked Isabella's hair gently. Everyone wanted to fix her, to make her stop being afraid. But you can't fix fear. You can only sit with it until it gets smaller. And does it get smaller? Sometimes, if you're patient. Elena met his eyes. How long has it been since you held her? The question landed like a blow. Dante's jaw tightened. 3 months. Since the night of the attack. She won't let me close enough. Because you're big and male and probably remind her of the kidnappers. I'm her father. The pain in his voice was raw. I know, but trauma doesn't care about biology. Elena shifted carefully, trying not to wake Isabella. Tell me what happened. The full story. Dante was quiet for so long that Elena thought he might not answer. Then he stood, walked to the window, and stared out at the darkening sky beyond the curtains. The Romano family, he began, his voice low. They've been trying to muscle into my territory for 2 years. Docks, unions, construction contracts, everything I've built, they want. Dominic Romano is the head, and he's old school. Believes violence solves everything. And he decided to come after your daughter. Not him directly. His nephew, Marco, a punk with ambitions bigger than his brain. Dante's hands clenched. Marco thought kidnapping Isabella would give him leverage. Force me to negotiate, to give up territory in exchange for her safety. But you stopped them. Barely. Dante turned back to face her. My men caught them 2 minutes after they grabbed her. 2 minutes. That's how close I came to losing her. His voice cracked. She fought them. My 10-year-old deaf daughter fought grown men with guns. She bit one of them, scratched another. They hit her, and she couldn't even scream for help. Elena's arms tightened around Isabella instinctively. When we got her back, she was hysterical, signing so fast I could barely understand. But one sign she kept making over and over, Dante's. Hands moved, mimicking the gesture. Unsafe, unsafe, unsafe. Everything was unsafe. Her room, the house, the world. Me. You weren't there when they took her. I was in a meeting, downstairs in my office. She was sleeping, and I thought she was safe because she was in my house with armed guards and a security system that cost $500,000. His laugh was bitter. I thought money could protect her. Thought power could keep her safe. I was wrong. Elena understood now, the basement, the cage, the desperate attempt to give Isabella control. Dante Russo was one of the most powerful men in Chicago, capable of ending lives with a word, but all his power couldn't stop his daughter's nightmares. What happened to the kidnappers? Elena asked, though she thought she already knew. Marco Romano is missing. His body will never be found. Dante's voice was flat, matter of fact. The two men who touched my daughter? They learned what happens when you hurt children in my city, he said. It so calmly, like discussing the weather. Elena should have been horrified, should have grabbed Isabella and run. But looking at this man who'd spent 3 months watching his daughter waste away in a basement, she found she couldn't quite summon the horror. The Romano family retaliated? She guessed. They tried. There have been 3 attempts on my life since then. 1 car bomb that thankfully only destroyed an empty vehicle. 1 sniper that my security caught before he could take the shot. 1 poisoning attempt that failed because I have food tasters. He said this like it was normal. Like having people taste his food for poison was just another Tuesday. But they can't get to me, so they're looking for other targets. Isabella. My businesses. Anyone I care about. Dante's eyes found hers. Which is why I need you to understand what you're agreeing to by staying here. You're not just helping a traumatized child. You're painting a target on your own back. Elena looked down at Isabella, sleeping peacefully for the first time in months. She thought about her overdue rent, her 2 jobs, her careful, small life that had been designed entirely around not taking risks. I grew up in Bridgeport, she said quietly, 3 blocks from the projects. My dad was a mechanic who got caught in gang crossfire when I was 8. Wrong place, wrong time, dead before the ambulance arrived. My mom worked herself to death, literally trying to keep us fed and housed. I know danger, Dante. I've lived with it my whole life. This is different. Is it? Elena met his eyes. Because from where I'm sitting, danger is danger. The only difference is whether you face it alone or with people who give a damn. She paused. Isabella needs someone who gives a damn. So yes, I'm staying. Dante studied her for a long moment, and Elena couldn't read the expression on his face. Then he moved to the chair across from them and sat down heavily. You'll live here, he said. It wasn't a question. The West Wing has a suite next to Isabella's new room. It's yours. Salary is $5,000 a week, plus room and board. Elena's breath caught. $5,000 a week? That was more than she made in 2 months at both her jobs combined. That's too much. That's what my daughter's happiness is worth. Dante's voice was firm. You'll have access to everything in this house. My staff will answer to you where Isabella is concerned. If you need something, anything for her care, you ask. Money is no object. I know you don't want money. You've made that clear. Dante leaned forward. But you have student loans, yes? From your nursing degree? Elena stiffened. How do you know about that? Because I make it my business to know about everyone in my house. He pulled out his phone, typed something. Your mother died 2 years ago. Cancer treatment bankrupted you both. You defaulted on your student loans to pay for her hospice care. You're currently $73,000 in debt. And the collections agencies call you 6 times a day. The accuracy of his information should have terrified her. Instead, Elena felt something else, a strange relief at being truly seen, at not having to hide her struggle. That debt disappears tomorrow, Dante continued. Consider it a signing bonus. And before you argue, understand that I'm not being generous. I'm being smart. You can't focus on helping Isabella if you're worried about keeping the lights on in an apartment you're about to lose. You know about the eviction, too. I know everything, Elena. It's how I stay alive. He set down his phone. So here's the deal. You live here. You help my daughter heal. And you don't have to worry about money or safety or any of the things that have been slowly crushing you. In exchange, I get to watch my daughter smile again. It was too much, too generous, too invasive, too everything. Elena opened her mouth to argue, but then Isabella shifted in, her sleep, making a small sound, not distressed content, like she was dreaming of something good for the first time in months. Okay, Elena whispered, but I'm paying you back. Every penny of the student loans. When Isabella's better, when she doesn't need me anymore, I'm paying you back. Dante's smile was sad. If that's what you need to believe, then yes, you'll pay me back. They sat in comfortable silence after that, watching Isabella sleep. Outside, night settled over Chicago like a blanket, and somewhere in the city, Elena's old life continued without her, the apartment she'd never return to, the job she'd quit tomorrow, the small, careful existence she'd built from necessity. She should have been scared, should have been questioning every decision that led to this moment. Instead, she just felt tired. And for the first time in 2 years, like she was exactly where she needed to be. Around midnight, Dante stood. "I should let you sleep." "Wait." Elena's voice stopped him at the door. "Can you teach me?" "Teach you what?" "Sign language. If I'm going to help Isabella, I need to talk to her. Really talk to her, not just guess at what she's trying to say." Something softened in Dante's expression. "You'd do that? Learn an entire language for a child you just met?" "I'd do that for any child who needed me. The fact that she just happens to come with a Mafia boss father is just a bonus complication." Elena's smile was wry. Dante laughed, actually laughed. It transformed his entire face, making him look younger, lighter. "Okay, we'll start tomorrow. 1 hour every evening after dinner. I'll teach you everything I know." "Thank you." "No, Elena." Dante's voice was soft but intense. "Thank you. You gave me back my daughter tonight. That's not something I can ever truly repay, but I'm going to spend a very long time trying." After he left, Elena lay back on the couch, Isabella still curled against her. Through the curtains, she could see the faint glow of Chicago's skyline. Somewhere out there, the Romano family was planning their next move. Somewhere out there, danger lurked with her name on it. But right now, in this moment, a little girl was sleeping peacefully, and that felt like enough of a victory to risk everything else. Elena closed her eyes and, for the first time in months, let herself hope that maybe, just maybe, broken things really could be fixed. The first week passed in a blur of adjustment and revelation. Elena moved into her suite, a space larger and more luxurious than anywhere she'd ever lived, complete with a king-sized bed, a bathroom with a rain shower and jacuzzi tub, and a walk-in closet that Mrs. Chen had filled with clothes, appropriate for someone in Miss Isabella's life. The clothes were designer labels Elena had only ever seen in magazines, and she'd protested until Dante made it clear. "You're not staff anymore, Elena. You're family. Family doesn't wear cleaning uniforms in my house." Isabella stayed, close to Elena like a shadow. The first night in her new room, the West Tower suite with windows facing the lake, had been rough. Isabella had signed frantically, panic in her eyes, until Elena had simply crawled into bed with her and held her through the shaking. "I'm here." Elena had whispered into the darkness. "I'm not leaving. The bad men can't get you here." It had taken 3 hours, but Isabella had finally slept. By day 3, Isabella was eating regular meals. By day 5, she'd ventured into the garden, clutching Elena's hand with bruising force, but outside nonetheless. By day 7, she'd laughed at something Elena had clumsily signed, and the sound, rough from disuse but genuine, had made Dante stop mid-conversation with Vincent and stare at his daughter like she was performing a miracle. The sign language lessons happened every evening like clockwork. Dante was a patient teacher, his hands moving through signs with graceful precision. Elena absorbed everything like a sponge, staying up late to practice, determined to communicate with Isabella properly. "You're a quick study," Dante commented one evening as Elena successfully signed a complex sentence about wanting to bake cookies with Isabella tomorrow. "I'm motivated." Elena's hands moved through another sign. "How do I say you're brave?" Dante showed her, his hands moving close to hers, correcting her finger placement. His touch was gentle, professional, but Elena felt a spark of something she firmly ignored. This wasn't that. This was just a father grateful to anyone who could help his daughter. But sometimes, late at night, she'd catch him watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. And sometimes, when she'd successfully coax Isabella into trying something new, she'd see a warmth in his eyes that had nothing to do with gratitude and everything to do with something deeper. Elena was falling into a routine, into a life that felt increasingly real. She'd called her landlord and her jobs, officially cutting ties with her old existence. Antonio Castellano, Dante's cousin and her former boss, had been surprisingly understanding. "You're helping Dante's daughter?" Antonio had said. "Good. That family needs someone like you, someone who isn't." He trailed off, searching for words. "Isn't what?" "Isn't from our world. Someone who remembers what normal looks like." But normal was relative. Elena was learning that the Russo household operated on rules she was only beginning to understand. The men who patrolled the grounds weren't just security, they were soldiers in a very real war. The business meetings Dante held in his office weren't about construction contracts and dock operations. They were about territory and power and survival. And the Romano family hadn't forgotten about Isabella. The threat came during Elena's second week. She was in the garden with Isabella, teaching her the signs for different flowers, when Vincent appeared. His face was grim. "Elena, get Isabella inside. Now." The urgency in his voice triggered every instinct Elena had. She scooped up Isabella, who was getting too big to carry but didn't protest, and ran toward the house. Behind her, she heard Vincent shouting orders into his radio. "Lock down the perimeter. Boss, we've got movement on the north fence. 3 hostiles. Maybe 4. Dante met them at the door, gun in his hand. Elena's eyes widened. She'd known intellectually that Dante was dangerous, but seeing him armed, ready for violence, made it visceral. "Basement," he ordered. "Elena, take Isabella to the safe room. Code is 7284. Don't open the door for anyone but me or Vincent." "What's happening?" "Romano's people are testing our defenses." Dante's voice was cold, controlled. "They want to see how we respond, where we're weak. Go." "Now." Elena ran, Isabella bouncing in her arms, her small hands clutching Elena's shoulders. They took the basement stairs 2 at a time, the same stairs Elena had, and descended that first day, though it felt like a lifetime ago. The safe room was hidden behind a false wall of storage boxes. Elena punched in the code with shaking hands. The door swung open, revealing a room lined with monitors, supplies, weapons, and a heavy steel door that could probably withstand a tank. She pulled Isabella inside and sealed the door behind them. Isabella was signing frantically, her face pale with fear. Elena caught enough to understand. "Bad men, coming back, going to take me." "No, baby." Elena pulled Isabella onto her lap, holding her tight. "Nobody's taking you. Your dad won't let them." "I won't let them." Through the monitors, Elena could see the mansion's grounds. Armed men, Dante's men, were spreading out in coordinated patterns. She spotted Dante moving with lethal grace, his gun raised, his focus absolute. This was a different man than the one who taught her sign language over dinner. This was the Mafia boss everyone feared. On one monitor, she saw movement at the north fence shadows, 3 of them. They didn't try to climb over. They just stood there, watching, testing, sending a message. "We know where you are. We can get to you whenever we want." Dante appeared on the monitor near the fence, flanked by 6 of his men. He said something Elena couldn't hear. The shadows at the fence didn't move. Then Dante raised his gun and fired, not at the shadows, at the ground in front of them. Once, twice, 3 times. A warning, unmistakable in its violence. The shadows retreated into the night. Elena watched Dante stand at the fence for a long moment, scanning the darkness, before finally holstering his weapon and speaking into his radio. 5 minutes later, a knock came at the safe room door. 3 knocks, a pause, then 2 more, the all-clear signal Dante had taught her that first day. Elena opened the door. Dante stood there, slightly out of breath. His expensive shirt splattered with something Elena chose not to examine too closely. "They're gone," he said. "For now." Isabella launched herself from Elena's arms into her father's. It was the first time in 3 months she'd voluntarily touched him, and Elena watched Dante's face crumple with emotion as he held his daughter. "Papa," Isabella signed against his chest. "Scared, but safe. Elena kept me safe." "I know, piccola mia," Dante signed back, his hands moving even as he held her. "You're always safe with Elena." Always. Over Isabella's head, his eyes met Elena's. In them she saw gratitude, yes, but also something darker, more complicated. She'd saved his daughter twice now. In his world, that created a debt. But more than that, it created a bond, the kind forged in fear and violence, and the desperate need to protect what mattered most. Elena had entered this house as a cleaning lady who'd stumbled into the wrong basement. Now she was something else entirely. Something without a name, caught between 2 worlds, the normal life she'd lost and this dangerous new existence where love and violence walked hand in hand. As they climbed back upstairs, Isabella between them holding both their hands, Elena realized something that should have terrified her but didn't. She wasn't leaving. Not tomorrow, not next month, maybe not ever. She'd found her place, even if that place was in the eye of a storm. And when the Romano family came back and they would come back, Elena would be ready. The attack on the fence had changed everything. What had been a quiet, healing sanctuary became an armed fortress overnight. New guards appeared, grim-faced men who moved with military precision. Cameras multiplied like weeds. Motion sensors covered every inch of the property. And Dante, who had been carefully giving Isabella space, now insisted on knowing where she was, every moment of every day. "It's too much," Elena told him 3 days after the incident. They were in his office, a space she'd never entered before, all dark wood and leather and the palled, faint smell of gunpowder. "You're scaring her with all the security." "I'm keeping her alive," Dante said flatly. He stood at his window, watching Isabella play in the garden below, with 2 armed guards flanking her at 20 feet. Romano sent a message. "They're not backing down." "So what's the plan? Keep her locked up forever? Let her grow up afraid of shadows?" Dante turned to face her, and Elena saw the exhaustion in his eyes. He looked like he hadn't slept in days, probably because he hadn't. "What would you have me do, Elena? Pretend the threat doesn't exist? Let my daughter play outside unprotected so she can feel normal right up until someone puts a bullet in her head?" The words were harsh, brutal. Elena flinched. "I'm sorry," Dante said immediately, running a hand through his hair. "That was I'm sorry. You don't deserve that. No, you're right." Elena sat in one of his leather chairs, suddenly exhausted herself. "I don't understand your world. I don't know what it's like to live with that kind of threat hanging over you every day." "It's hell," Dante said simply. He moved to sit across from her. "Every night I lie awake wondering if today was the day I missed something. If tomorrow will be the day they finally get past my defenses. If I'll wake up and find Isabella gone, or worse." He stopped, his jaw working. "I can't lose her, Elena. She's all I have left." Elena understood. She did. But watching Isabella regress over the past 3 days, the girl who'd finally started coming out of her shell, now jumping at shadows again, refusing to sleep alone, barely eating, was breaking her heart. "There has to be another way," Elena said quietly. "Some way to end this that doesn't involve Isabella living in fear forever." "You mean negotiate with Romano?" Dante's laugh was bitter. "Men like Dominic Romano don't negotiate. They see compromise as weakness. The only language they understand is strength. Then show them strength." Elena leaned forward. "But not the kind they expect. Not violence and retaliation. Show them that touching Isabella costs more than they're willing to pay." "I've already—" Dante stopped, studying her face. "What are you thinking?" Elena wasn't sure she should voice the thought that had been forming. It was dangerous, possibly stupid. But watching Isabella slowly disappear back into her shell was worse than any risk. "Expose them," she said. "Not to your world, to mine. To the normal people who don't understand mob politics but do understand that someone tried to kidnap a deaf 10-year-old girl." Elena's voice gained strength. "Make them pariahs. Not in the criminal world, but in the real world. Where their businesses operate, where their kids go to school, where they have to live and shop and exist." Dante stared at her like she'd just suggested flying to the moon. "You want me to go to the media? To the police?" "No. I want you to make them wish they'd never heard Isabella's name." Elena stood, pacing. "Romano has legitimate businesses, right? Restaurants, construction companies, things that need permits and inspections and city approval?" "Yes, but—" "So make those businesses toxic. Not through violence, through exposure. Leak information about their attempted kidnapping. Show the world what kind of men they are. Let every parent in Chicago know that the Romano family targets children." Elena turned to face him. "You said Romano's old school, that he cares about respect and reputation. Destroy that. Make him a monster in the public eye. Make it so his own family questions his judgment." Dante was silent for a long moment, his mind clearly working through the implications. "That's actually brilliant," he said slowly. "And completely outside anything Romano would expect, because it doesn't play by your world's rules." "Exactly." Dante stood, moving to his desk. He pulled up files on his computer, his fingers flying across the keyboard. "Romano's oldest son is running for city council. His daughter's wedding is being covered by the society pages. His construction company is bidding on a new hospital contract." He looked up at Elena. "If word got out that the family tried to kidnap a disabled child, they'd be pariahs, uninvitable, untouchable in all the ways that matter to people trying to go legitimate." Elena moved to stand beside him, looking at the screen. "Can you make it happen without it tracing back to you?" "I can make anything happen, Elena." His smile was sharp, dangerous. The question is whether I want to start a different kind of war. Because make no mistake, Romano will retaliate. Maybe not with violence, but he'll come after my businesses, my reputation, everything I've built. Is it worth it? To keep Isabella safe? Dante's hand moved to a framed photo on his desk. Isabella as a baby, cradled in her mother's arms. Both of them smiling, happy, unaware of the future that waited. Yes, he said quietly. She's worth everything. The next 2 weeks were a masterclass in strategic warfare that didn't involve a single bullet. It started with an anonymous tip to the Chicago Tribune about the Romano family's alleged involvement in a kidnapping attempt on a disabled minor. The reporter who received the tip was known for her investigations into organized crime and for her inability to resist a story that painted criminals as monsters. She dug, and what she found fed carefully through Dante's network of informants. Each piece plausibly deniable was damning. Security footage from the night of Isabella's kidnapping attempt, grainy but clear enough to show armed men breaking into a child's bedroom. Medical records from the hospital where one of Isabella's therapists worked, showing treatment for PTSD following a home invasion. Testimony from neighbors who'd heard screaming that night. Testimony that had been quietly purchased, Elena suspected, but was nevertheless convincing. The article ran on page 3. Prominent family linked to child kidnapping attempt. The Romano name was never explicitly stated liability concerns, but anyone who knew Chicago's criminal landscape could read between the lines. The response was immediate and brutal. Romano's son withdrew from the city council race, citing family health concerns. His daughter's wedding planned for the Drake Hotel. Chicago's most prestigious venue was quietly canceled when the hotel suddenly lost the reservation. The hospital contract? Awarded to a competitor after a sudden influx of community concerns about Romano Construction's ethical practices. Elena watched it unfold from the safety of Dante's estate, Isabella by her side. The girl was slowly returning to herself, sleeping better, eating more, even laughing occasionally. She'd started intensive therapy 3 times a week with a specialist in childhood trauma who made house calls. And she'd begun learning to read lips, a skill her previous therapists had. Discouraged, but that Elena thought might help her feel less isolated. "You're brilliant with her," Dante said one evening. They were in the library, their usual spot, watching Isabella practice signing with Vincent, who'd asked to learn so he could talk to the little boss properly. "She's brilliant with herself," Elena corrected. "I'm just here to remind her of that when she forgets." Dante moved closer, his shoulder nearly touching hers. Over the past weeks, there'd been moments like this, small intimacies that felt both natural and terrifying. A hand on her back as he guided her through a doorway, his fingers lingering when he corrected her sign language. The way his eyes followed her when he thought she wasn't looking. Elena told herself it didn't mean anything. That gratitude looked a lot like attraction when you weren't paying attention. That a man like Dante Russo, powerful, wealthy, dangerous, couldn't possibly be interested in a former cleaning lady with student loan, debt, and secondhand clothes. But sometimes, late at night, she let herself wonder. "Elena," Dante said quietly, and something in his tone made her look up. "There's something you need to know." Her stomach tightened. "What?" Romano reached out. "He wants to meet." The words hung in the air between them. Elena glanced at Isabella, who was laughing at something Vincent had signed wrong, oblivious to the danger her father still navigated daily. "What kind of meeting?" Elena asked carefully. "A negotiation. He's offering a truce. His exact words were, 'Let's discuss terms like civilized men.'" Dante's smile was grim. "Which means he's hurting from the exposure and wants to make a deal before it gets worse. That's good, isn't it? That's what we wanted. Maybe. Or maybe it's a trap." Dante turned to face her fully. Men like Romano don't give up power willingly. If he's offering to negotiate, it's because he's planning something else. Then don't go. I have to. Refusing would be a sign of weakness, and weakness invites attack. He paused. "The meeting is tomorrow night. Neutral territory, Vitali's restaurant downtown. Public, witnesses, no weapons allowed." Elena's hands clenched. "I don't like it." "Neither do I. But it's the endgame, Elena. Either we reach an accord tomorrow, or this escalates into a war that will make the past 2 months look like a playground fight." He took her hand, his thumb brushing across her knuckles. "Whatever happens, Isabella stays safe. I've arranged for extra security here. Vincent will be in charge while I'm gone. And you. His voice softened. You just keep being exactly what you are. Her safe place. Elena nodded, not trusting her voice. The casual way he held her hand felt like so much more than comfort. Come back, she said finally. Isabella needs you. She's finally starting to let you in again. Don't. She stopped, not sure how to finish the sentence. Don't get killed? Dante's smile was sad. I'll do my best. That night, Elena couldn't sleep. She lay in her luxurious bed, staring at the ceiling, playing through every terrible scenario. Dante, walking into a trap. Romano deciding negotiation was less effective than a bullet. Isabella waking up to find her father gone, just like she'd lost her mother. Around 2 a.m., Elena gave up on sleep and padded down the hallway. She was heading to the library when she heard its soft crying from Isabella's room. She knocked gently before entering. Isabella was sitting up in bed, tears streaming down her face, signing frantically to herself. Elena moved quickly, climbing into bed and pulling the girl into her arms. Hey, I'm here. What's wrong, sweetheart? Isabella's hands moved shakily. Bad. Dream, Papa, gone, like, Mama. Elena's heart broke. Your papa's not going anywhere. He's right down the hall, probably not sleeping either because he's worrying about you. Tomorrow, he goes away. So Isabella had overheard, or sensed, or simply knew the way. Children always seemed to know when danger lurked. Elena made a decision. Come on, she said, taking Isabella's hand. Let's go check on him together. They found Dante in his office, exactly as Elena had predicted. He sat at his desk, surrounded by papers, a glass of whiskey untouched at his elbow. When they appeared in the doorway, his expression transformed from hard concentration to soft concern. Papa, scared. Isabella signed, running to him. Dante pulled her onto his lap, something that would have been impossible a month ago, and signed back. Not scared. Careful. Different. Things. But tomorrow. Dangerous. Dante met Elena's eyes over Isabella's head. She nodded, confirming what he'd suspected Isabella knew more than they'd thought. Yes, Piccola, he said aloud, knowing Elena would interpret his words through his signing. Tomorrow is dangerous, but I've been dealing with dangerous men your whole life. This is just another Tuesday for me. But what if? Isabella's hands trembled. What if you don't come back? Then you'll have Elena, Dante signed firmly, and Vincent, and Uncle Antonio and all the family who love you. You'll never be alone, Isabella. Never. He pulled her closer. But I'm planning to come back. I'm planning to bore you with stories about boring negotiations and boring grown-up problems. Okay? Isabella nodded against his chest, but Elena could see she wasn't convinced. Can we stay here tonight? Elena asked quietly. All of us together? I think we all need that. Dante's office had a leather couch that pulled out into a bed for nights when business kept him working late, Elena guessed. Together, they made up the bed, and Isabella crawled into the middle, pulling both Elena and Dante close. It should have been awkward, this strange intimacy, but somehow it wasn't. It felt like family, the kind forged not from blood but from shared fear and desperate hope. Elena lay facing Isabella, with Dante on the girl's other side. Over. Isabella's sleeping form an hour later. Her eyes met Dante's. I'm scared, Elena admitted in a whisper. I know I shouldn't be, that you've done this 1,000 times, but I'm scared too, Dante whispered back. Every single time. Because every time might be the last time I see her. The last time I see, he stopped, his eyes holding Elena's. The last time I see what matters. Elena's breath caught. There was something in his gaze that had nothing to do with Isabella, and everything to do with the woman lying across from him, Dante. After tomorrow, he said quietly, if I come back, if this ends the way I hope, there's something I need to tell you. Something I've been trying not to feel because it's complicated and probably stupid and definitely dangerous. What? Elena's heart hammered. Ask me tomorrow. When I come back. It was a promise and a plea. Give me something to come back for besides duty. Elena wanted to demand answers now, wanted to make him say whatever was in his eyes. But Isabella shifted between them, murmuring in her sleep, and the moment passed. Tomorrow? Elena whispered. You come back tomorrow, and I'll ask. Dante's hand reached across Isabella's sleeping form, finding Elena's. Their fingers tangled together, and they lay like that until dawn broke over Chicago, bringing with it a day that would change everything. The restaurant was packed, which was both good and bad. Good because witnesses meant less chance of outright violence. Bad because if something did go wrong, there would be casualties. Dante arrived at Vitali's at exactly 8 p.m., flanked by Vincent and 2 of his best men. Romano was already there, seated at a private table in the back, his own security detail hovering nearby. Dominic Romano was in his 60s, silver-haired and distinguished-looking, the kind of man who could pass for a legitimate businessman at first glance. But Dante had known him for 30 years, had watched him order executions with the same casual ease as ordering dinner. "Dante," Romano stood, offering his hand. "Thank you for coming." Dante shook it, feeling for weapons, finding none. They were both playing by the rules tonight. "Dominic, you said you wanted to discuss terms. Straight to business." "I always appreciated that about you." Romano gestured to the seat across from him. "Please." They sat. Waiters appeared with wine and appetizers that neither man touched. "This wasn't about food. The past 2 months have been difficult," Romano began, "for both our families. You tried to kidnap my daughter," Dante said flatly. "I'd say it's been more difficult for me. Marco acted without my approval. He was young, ambitious, stupid." Romano's expression hardened. "He's been dealt with." "I know. I'm the one who dealt with him." Romano nodded slowly. "Yes, and I cannot fault you for that. A man's daughter is sacred." Marco forgot that. He sipped his wine. "But your response, the media exposure, the destruction of my family's reputation that was inspired. Unexpected. You left me no choice. Perhaps. But now we find ourselves in an interesting position." Romano leaned forward. "You've made it impossible for my family to operate in certain circles. My son's political career is over. My daughter's social standing is destroyed. My business deals are falling through." He paused. "In the old days, this would mean war. Blood on the streets until one family was destroyed." "It still could," Dante said quietly. "It could, but I'm an old man, Dante. I'm tired of war. And more importantly, I'm tired of losing." Romano smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "So, I'm proposing something different. A treaty. You stay out of my territories, the South Docks, Bridgeport, the Union contracts. I stay out of yours. We divide the city cleanly. No overlap. No conflict." It was more than Dante had expected. A clean division of territory would mean peace, stability. Isabella could grow up without constant threats. Elena. Dante forced his mind back to business. "And if I refuse? Then we go to war, and one of us doesn't survive it. Maybe both of us don't." Romano's eyes were cold. "But my nephew already paid the price for his stupidity. How many more of our people need to die before we admit this is pointless?" Dante studied the older man's face, looking for the trap. Because there was always a trap. "What's the catch, Dominic? You don't offer peace out of the goodness of your heart. The catch is simple." Romano pulled out a photograph and slid it across the table. Dante's blood ran cold. It was Elena. "With Isabella. In the garden. Taken 3 days ago. We can't get to your daughter," Romano said quietly. "Your security is too good. But the woman Elena Castellano, she leaves the estate occasionally. Shopping, errands, that sort of thing. And she's not family. Not really. Just an employee who got lucky." Rage flooded through Dante, so pure and violent he could taste it. His hand moved toward his concealed weapon, rules be damned. But Vincent's hand clamped down on his arm. "Easy, boss," Vincent whispered. "That's what he wants." Romano smiled. "I'm not threatening her, Dante. I'm explaining my position. You've made it clear that your daughter is untouchable. I'm making it clear that the woman is not." He pulled the photograph back. "So here's my final offer. We divide territory. We agree to peace. And you make sure Miss Castellano understands that her role in your household has consequences. That helping you comes with risks she needs to accept. You son of a... I'm not asking you to let her go. I'm asking you to be honest with her." Romano's voice was almost kind. "Tell her what being part of your world really means. Let her choose, with full knowledge. If she stays, she's off limits under the same protection as your daughter. But she needs to choose it. Not stumble into it because she has a good heart." The terrible thing was, Romano had a point. Elena had fallen into this life by accident. She'd stayed because of Isabella, because of compassion, because Dante had made it impossible for her to leave by paying off her debts and giving her security she desperately needed. But had she ever really chosen this? Knowing what it meant? Understanding that being close to him painted a target on her back that would never go away? "I need to think about it," Dante said finally. "You have 24 hours. Romano stood, buttoning his jacket. "After that, the offer expires, and we go back to the old ways. War until one of us is dead." He paused. "And Dante? That woman Elena. She's good for you. I can see it in your face when you look at her photograph. Don't let pride destroy something rare." After Romano left, Dante sat at the table for a long time, staring at nothing. "Boss?" Vincent said carefully. "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking Romano just gave me everything I wanted," Dante said quietly. "Peace, territory, safety. For Isabella, all I have to do is let Elena choose, knowing that choice might get her killed. She'd choose to stay." "I know. That's the problem." Dante stood, his decision made. "Let's go home. I need to talk to her. Really talk to her. And give her the chance to leave before it's too late." The drive back to the estate felt like heading toward an execution. His own, maybe. Because if Elena left and she should leave, any rational person would leave. Dante wasn't sure he'd survive it. He'd already lost his wife. Losing Elena might finish what grief had started. But he owed her the truth. All of it. Even if it destroyed the fragile happiness they'd built. Even if it cost him everything. Elena was waiting in the library when Dante returned. She'd spent the entire evening trying to distract Isabella with board games and Disney movies, but the girl had sensed her anxiety and finally signed, "Stop, pretending, everything. Okay, no, you, scared." So Elena had tucked her in early, singing her a lullaby in Spanish that her own mother used to sing, and come downstairs to wait. When Dante walked through the library door at 10:30, looking exhausted and older than his 38 years, Elena stood so quickly she knocked over her tea. "You're alive," she said, and hated how her voice shook. "I'm alive." Dante closed the door behind him, leaning against it like it was the only thing holding him up. The meeting went, well, better than expected, actually. "Then why do you look like you're going to a funeral?" Dante's laugh was hollow. "Because I have to tell you something, and I'm terrified you're going to leave when you hear it." Elena's stomach dropped. "What happened?" "Sit down, please." Dante moved to the couch, and Elena followed. They sat at opposite ends, a careful distance that felt wrong after last night's intimacy but necessary for what was coming. "Romano offered peace," Dante began. "A clean division of territory. No more threats against Isabella. No more war." He paused. "But it came with a condition." "What condition?" Dante pulled out his phone and showed her the photograph. Elena stared at herself and Isabella in the garden, the zoom close enough to count the freckles on her nose, the angle suggesting someone had been watching from outside the estate walls. "They've been watching you," Dante said quietly. "Not just at the estate, everywhere. Shopping, walking, living your life. Romano made it very clear that while Isabella is untouchable, you're not." Elena's hands trembled slightly, but she kept her voice steady. "What did he want? For you to make a choice. A real choice, knowing what it means to be part of my life." Dante set down his phone and turned to face her fully. "Elena, I need to tell you something I should have told you weeks ago. Something I've been too selfish to say because I didn't want to lose you." "Dante. No, let me finish. Please." He took a breath. "You stumbled into my world by accident. You stayed because you have a good heart and Isabella needed you. I took advantage of that. I paid off your debts so you couldn't leave. I gave you security and comfort and a life that made it impossible to walk away." His voice cracked. "But I never told you the cost. I know there's danger." "You don't." "Not really." Dante stood, pacing now. "You know intellectually that I'm involved in organized crime, but you don't know what that means. You don't know that every restaurant I own is a money laundering operation. Every construction contract I win involves bribes and threats, and occasionally violence. You don't know that I've killed 17 men with my own hands, that I've ordered the deaths of dozens more." Elena's breath caught, but she didn't speak. "You don't know that the Romano family is just one of 5 major families who would love to see me dead, that there are FBI investigations, rival organizations, legitimate businessmen who want to destroy me because I won't play by their rules." Dante's hands clenched. You don't know that being close to me means you'll always have a target on your back, that you'll never be truly safe, that every time you leave this estate, someone might be watching, waiting, looking for leverage. I'm not stupid, Dante. I knew. Did you? He spun to face her. Did you really understand that staying here means you might die? That someone might put a bullet in your head just to hurt me? That your family, your friends, anyone you care about becomes a potential target? His voice rose. Did you understand that loving someone in my world means constantly wondering if today is the day they don't come home? The word hung between them. Loving. Is that what this is? Elena asked quietly. Love? Dante froze. Elena, because you're right, I didn't know all the details. I didn't know about the money laundering or the body count or the FBI investigations. Elena stood, closing the distance between them. But I knew the important thing. I knew that being close to you was dangerous. That caring about you and Isabella meant accepting a different kind of life. You couldn't have known. I chose to stay anyway. Elena's voice was firm now. Every single day, I chose to stay. Not because you paid off my loans or gave me a nice room or made it hard to leave. I stayed because Isabella needed me. And because... She stopped, her courage faltering. Because? Dante's voice was barely a whisper. Because somewhere between teaching you to see your daughter as more than her disability, and watching you learn sign language for her, and seeing the way you cry when she laughs somewhere in all of that, I fell in love with you. The words came out in a rush. And I know that's stupid and dangerous and probably the worst decision I've ever made, but I fell in love with you anyway. Dante stared at her like she'd just performed a miracle. You love me? Yes, you idiot. Why else would I stay? Why else? Would I spend every day terrified that you won't come home? Why else would I lie awake at night planning how to keep Isabella safe if something happens to you? Tears stung Elena's eyes. You think I don't know what being part of your world costs? I know. I've always known. I just decided you were worth it. Elena, we can't. Dante seemed to be struggling for words. I'm trying to give you a chance to leave. To have a normal life with a normal man who doesn't come home with blood on his shoes. I don't want normal. Elena's voice rose. I spent 25 years being normal. Working normal jobs, living in normal apartments, dating normal men who looked at me like I was a temporary convenience. And you know what normal got me? Nowhere. I was drowning in debt and loneliness, and a life that felt like slowly suffocating. She grabbed his shirt, pulling him closer. You and Isabella, this life, it's terrifying and dangerous and completely insane. But for the first time in my life, I matter. What I do matters. The words I say, the choices I make, the way I show up every single day, it all matters to people I care about. Her voice broke. Don't take that away from me because you're scared I can't handle it. I'm scared you'll die, Dante said roughly, his hands coming up to cup her face. I'm scared you'll end up like Maria caught in crossfire that was meant for me. I'm scared that loving you will get you killed. Then love me anyway. Elena's tears spilled over. Love me and teach me how to be careful. Love me and show me how to survive in your world. Love me and trust that I'm strong enough to handle it. You're too good for this life. Maybe. Or maybe this life needs someone good in it. Elena smiled through her tears. Someone who remembers that underneath all the violence and territory and power, you're just a father trying to protect his daughter. Just a man who deserves to be happy. Dante's thumb brushed away her tears. Romano's, a condition was that you choose this. Consciously, knowingly. That you understand being with me means you're always at risk. Then my answer is yes. Elena's voice was steady now. Certain. I choose this. I choose you and Isabella and this dangerous, beautiful life. I choose it knowing exactly what it costs. Elena, do you love me? She cut him off. That thing you said last night about having something to tell me after the meeting, was it this? Was it love? Dante's eyes closed briefly. When they opened, they were full of raw emotion. Yes. God help me, yes. I love you. I love how you charge into basements to save children you don't know. I love how you learned an entire language just to talk to my daughter. I love how you see people really see them past their disabilities and their damage and their sins. His voice roughened. I love that you make Isabella laugh, and that you argue with me when you think I'm wrong, and that you're brave enough to choose this life when any sane person would run. Then stop trying to push me away. Elena rose on her toes, her hands sliding into his hair. Stop trying to protect me from something I'm choosing with open eyes. I don't want to be selfish. Be selfish. Elena pulled him down until their foreheads touched. Be selfish and keep me. Love me and let me love you back. Trust that I know my own mind. If something happens to you, then it happens. But I'd rather live dangerously with you than safely without you. Elena smiled. Now are you going to kiss me? Or are we going to spend all night arguing about whether I'm allowed to make my own choices? Dante's laugh was shaky, but his arms came around her, pulling her close. You're the most stubborn woman I've ever met. Good thing you like stubborn. I don't just like it, Dante said softly, his lips brushing hers. I love it. I love you. So much it terrifies me. Good, Elena whispered. Love should be terrifying. It means it matters. Then he was kissing. Her and Elena tasted desperation and relief and promise all mixed together. This wasn't a gentle first kiss. It was the kiss of two people who'd almost lost each other, who'd chosen each other despite impossible odds, who'd found something rare and worth fighting for. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Dante rested his forehead against hers. Romano's waiting for my answer, he said quietly. Peace in exchange for acknowledging that you're part of this world now. That you're under my protection and accepting the risks that come with it. Tell him yes. Elena's voice was firm. Tell him I choose this. Tell him I choose you. You're sure? I've never been more sure of anything in my life. Dante pulled out his phone and typed a message. 3 words. We accept. Peace. The response came 30 seconds later. Good. Welcome to the family, Miss Castellano. Elena read it over Dante's shoulder and laughed, slightly hysterical. I just negotiated peace with the Mafia by falling in love. My mother would be so confused. Your mother, Dante said carefully. She's going to need protection too. If you're part of my life, then your family becomes a target. I know. Elena had already thought about this. Is there a way to keep her safe without her knowing why? She doesn't need to know about all of this. She gestured vaguely. I'll have Vincent arrange security. Discreet. She'll never know. Dante paused. Elena, there's something else. If we're doing this, really doing this, there are things you need to learn. How to spot surveillance. What to do if someone approaches you. How to recognize threats. Teach me, Elena said simply. It's not romantic. It's not. I don't care. Teach me how to survive so I can stay. Elena took his hands. Teach me everything I need to know to be part of your world and Isabella's world and our world. Our world. The words settled into Dante's chest like coming home. Okay, he said. Tomorrow we start training. But tonight, he pulled her closer. Tonight I just want to hold you and remember that somehow, against all odds, I found someone brave enough to love me. And I found someone worth being brave for. They stood like that for a long time, wrapped in each other's arms, while Chicago's night hummed beyond the estate walls. Somewhere in the city, Dominic Romano was telling his family about the peace accord. Somewhere, FBI agents were monitoring phone lines and planning their next move. Somewhere, life continued with all its danger and possibility. But in this moment, in this room, there was only love, complicated, dangerous, real. The sound of small feet in the hallway made them both turn. Isabella stood in the doorway, her hair mussed from sleep, her eyes wide. She'd clearly woken up and come looking for them. Her hands moved slowly, deliberately, as she took in the scene Elena and Dante standing close, obviously together, in a way that changed everything. Are you okay? Isabella signed to Elena. Elena knelt down, bringing herself to Isabella's level. I'm more than okay. I'm happy. Papa makes you happy? Elena glanced up at Dante, who was watching them with an expression of such tenderness it made her heart ache. Yes, your Papa makes me very happy. Isabella processed this, her young mind working through the implications. Then her hands moved again, faster now, excited. Does this mean you're staying forever? Elena's breath caught. She looked at Dante, who nodded slightly permission and promise all at once. Yes, Elena signed back. If you want me to stay. Isabella launched herself at Elena, nearly knocking her over. The girl's arms wrapped around Elena's neck in a fierce hug, and Elena felt wetness on her shoulder, happy tears this time. "I guess that's a yes," Dante said, his own voice thick with emotion. "Forever." Isabella signed against Elena's shoulder. "You stay forever with me and Papa. We're a family." "Yes, Piccola." Dante knelt beside them, wrapping his arms around both his daughter and the woman he loved. "We're a family." They stayed like that for a long time, three people who'd found each other against impossible odds, who'd built something real from trauma and fear and desperate hope. Finally, Isabella pulled back and signed something that made both adults laugh. "Can we have hot chocolate?" "It's almost midnight," Elena protested weakly. "Special occasion," Isabella insisted. "We're a family now. That deserves hot chocolate." "She's got a point," Dante said, standing and offering his hand to Elena. Family celebrations require hot chocolate. So they made their way to the kitchen, Dante carrying Isabella while Elena walked beside them, her hand in his and Mrs. Chen, who was doing late-night inventory, raised an eyebrow at the sight but said nothing about the obvious shift in household dynamics. They made hot chocolate with excessive marshmallows, sitting around the kitchen island, like normal people having a normal night. Except they weren't normal people, and this wasn't a normal night. This was a mafia boss, a former cleaning lady, and a deaf 10-year-old girl who'd survived kidnapping attempts and trauma and fear. This was a family forged not from blood but from choice, courage, and love that refused to be reasonable. "To new beginnings," Dante said, raising his mug. "To being brave," Elena added. "To hot chocolate," Isabella signed, making them both laugh. They clinked mugs, and somewhere in that gesture was everything that mattered: acceptance, promise, and the kind of love that survived even in the darkest places. 6 months later. The wedding was small. Not because Dante couldn't afford something elaborate, he could have rented out every venue in Chicago, but because Elena had insisted on intimate. "Just family," she'd said. "Real family." So they gathered in the mansion's garden on a perfect May afternoon, Vincent as best man, Mrs. Chen crying despite her protests that she never cried, Antonio Castellano giving Elena away with obvious pride, and 40 of Dante's most trusted people bearing witness. Isabella was the flower girl, wearing a pale pink dress and a smile that hadn't faded in months. She'd been the one to insist on the wedding, actually, signing one night over dinner. "When are you going to make it official?" "Make what official?" Elena had asked, confused. "That you're my mom now," Elena had cried. Dante had cried. Even Vincent had gotten suspiciously emotional. "Is that what you want?" Elena had asked Isabella carefully. "For me to be your mom?" "You already are," Isabella had signed simply. "Just need the paper to prove it." So here they were, Elena in a simple ivory dress that made her look like an angel, Dante in a dark suit that somehow made him look both dangerous and devoted, and Isabella between them holding both their hands. The officiant, a judge who owed Dante several favors but was genuinely moved by the ceremony, spoke about love and family and choosing each other every day. "Do you, Dante Michael Russo, take Elena Maria Castellano to be your wife? To love her, protect her, and cherish her for as long as you both shall live?" "I do." Dante's voice was steady, but his eyes were bright. "I absolutely do." "And do you, Elena Maria Castellano, take Dante Michael Russo to be your husband? To love him, support him, and stand by his side through whatever comes?" Elena thought about everything that had brought them here, the basement, the fear, the danger that would never fully go away. She thought about Isabella's smile and Dante's gentleness and the life they'd built from nothing. "I do," she said firmly. "With my whole heart, I do." Isabella tugged on Elena's dress. When Elena looked down, the girl signed, "Now, you, kiss, and we're official. Family." The crowd laughed, those who understood sign language translating for those who didn't. "The flower girl has spoken," the judge said with a smile. "By the power vested in me by the state of Illinois, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss your bride." Dante pulled Elena close, his hands gentle on her face, and kissed her like she was the answer to every prayer he'd never known how to pray. The crowd cheered, but Elena barely heard them. She was too focused on this moment, this man, this impossible love that had saved them both. When they broke apart, Isabella was there, wrapping her arms around both of them in a fierce hug. My family, she signed against their shoulders. Mine. Forever. Forever, Elena whispered, pulling her closer. Forever, Dante echoed. The reception was held under a white tent in the garden, with food catered by Dante's best restaurant and music that ranged from Italian classics to current pop hits that made Isabella laugh. Elena danced with Dante, with Vincent, with Antonio, and finally with Isabella, who was getting confident enough to try new things in public. As the sun set over Chicago, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, Elena found herself standing at the edge of the tent with Dante, watching their guests celebrate. Happy? Dante asked, his arm around her waist. Deliriously. Elena leaned into him. Though 6 months ago, if someone had told me I'd be married to a mafia boss and raising his deaf daughter, I would have thought they were insane. And now? Now I can't imagine my life any other way. Elena turned to face him. I love you, Dante Russo. I love your complicated world and your fierce protection, and the way you cry when Isabella accomplishes something new. I love all of it. I love you too, Dante said softly. You saved my daughter, but more than that, you saved me. You reminded me that life is more than territory and power and survival. You gave me back hope. We gave each other hope, Elena corrected. That's what love does. Isabella appeared then, dragging Vincent by the hand. She signed something urgent, and Vincent translated with a grin. The little boss says it's time for cake, and she's not taking no for an answer. Well, Dante said, offering his arm to Elena. When the little boss gives an order, we obey. They cut the cake, a ridiculous 3-tier creation that Isabella had helped design, complete with a tiny deaf awareness ribbon and frosting on the side. Isabella got the first piece, obviously, and proceeded to get frosting on her nose, which made everyone laugh. As the evening wore on and guests began to drift away, Elena found a quiet moment with Mrs. Chen, who'd been surprisingly emotional all day. I was wrong about you, Mrs. Chen said quietly. When you first came here, I thought you were just another woman looking to take advantage of Mr. Russo's gratitude. And now? Now I see that you're the best thing that's happened to this family in years. Mrs. Chen's voice was thick. You brought light back into this house. You gave Isabella her childhood back. You made Mr. Russo remember how to smile. She paused. Thank you. For loving them both so fiercely. Elena hugged the older woman, surprised when Mrs. Chen hugged her back just as fiercely. Thank you for taking a chance on the cleaning lady who wouldn't mind her own business, Elena said with a smile. Best mistake you ever made, Mrs. Chen replied. As night fell completely, the remaining guests gathered around a fire pit in the garden. Isabella sat between Elena and Dante, her head on Elena's shoulder, obviously exhausted but fighting sleep because she didn't want to miss anything. Vincent stood up, raising his glass. A toast, he announced. To the boss and his beautiful bride. To Isabella, who finally has the mother she deserves. And to family, not the one you're born into, but the one you choose. To family. Everyone echoed, glasses clinking. Dante leaned over and whispered in Elena's ear, Thank you for choosing us. Thank you for being worth choosing, Elena whispered back. Isabella's hands moved sleepily between them. Best day ever. Best day so far, Elena signed back. Many. More. Coming. Promise? Promise, Elena and Dante said together. And in that moment, with Chicago's stars above them, and their family around them, and love filling every space between, Elena knew it was true. There would be hard days ahead, there always were in Dante's world. There would be threats and danger and moments of fear. But there would also be love, fierce, protective, transformative love that could survive anything. Because that's what families did. They survived. They protected each other. They chose each other, every single day, no matter what. Elena Castellano had walked into a mansion's basement 6 months ago as a cleaning lady trying to save a child. She'd walked out as Elena Russo, wife and mother and part of something bigger than herself. And somewhere between the fear and the courage and the choice to stay, she'd found exactly what she'd been looking for her whole life. A place to belong, a purpose worth fighting for, a love worth every risk. Home. Epilogue, epilogue. 1 year later, the Chicago Tribune ran a story on page 12 that few people noticed. Russo Foundation opens 5th Accessibility Center for Deaf Children. The Elena Russo Foundation for Deaf Youth announced yesterday the opening of its 5th center, providing free resources, therapy, and education for deaf and hard of hearing children across Chicago. The foundation, started by Elena Russo, with the support of her husband, prominent businessman Dante Russo, has served over 2,000 families in its first year of operation. Every child deserves to be seen and heard, even when they can't hear themselves, Mrs. Russo said at the ribbon-cutting ceremony. This foundation exists to make sure no deaf child feels invisible ever again. The newest center, located in Bridgeport, will offer free ASL classes for family members, adaptive technology, and social programs designed to help deaf children build confidence and community. Mr. and Mrs. Russo attended the ceremony with their daughter Isabella, 11, who is deaf and serves as the foundation's junior ambassador. Isabella, who has become a voice for deaf youth advocacy in Chicago, gave a speech in ASL that brought many attendees to tears. "My mom found me when I was lost." Isabella's speech read, translated by foundation staff, "Now we're making sure no other kids get lost. We're making sure everyone gets found." The article included a photo Elena and Dante standing on either side of Isabella, all three of them smiling, looking like any normal family at any normal ribbon-cutting ceremony. No one reading the article would guess that Elena had found Isabella locked in a basement cage, terrified and traumatized. No one would know about the kidnapping attempts or the Mafia war or the dangerous choice Elena had made to stay. They just saw what mattered. A family helping other families. A woman who'd been a cleaning lady using her second chance to give second chances to others. A little girl who'd been broken learning to be whole by helping others heal. That evening, back at the estate, Isabella was working on homework in the library, while Elena and Dante reviewed foundation paperwork. 5 centers in 1 year, Dante said, shaking his head in amazement. "You're changing the world, Mrs. Russo." "We're changing the world," Elena corrected. "This foundation exists because you gave me the resources to build it. I gave you money, you gave it purpose." Dante pulled her into his lap, nuzzling her neck. "I'm proud of you, so proud." Isabella looked up from her homework and made a gagging face. "Gross. Get a room." "We have several rooms," Dante signed back with a grin. "All of them ours." Isabella rolled her eyes but smiled. "When is Aunt Elena's sister coming?" "You said today." Elena checked her watch. "Sarah should be in here any minute. She's bringing Danny, you remember my little cousin? The one with CP? That's right. He's excited to meet you." The doorbell rang, and Isabella jumped up, running to answer it, something that would have been unthinkable a year ago. Now she moved through the house with confidence, no longer afraid of windows or open spaces. Sarah Castellano stood at the door with her son, both looking nervous and awed by the mansion. Elena had reconnected with her sister 6 months ago, and the relationship was still fragile but growing stronger. "Elena," Sarah said, pulling her into a hug, "thank you for inviting us." Danny hasn't stopped talking about meeting Isabella. Danny, 9 years old with cerebral palsy and the brightest smile Elena had ever seen, was staring at Isabella with obvious admiration. Isabella signed something, and Elena translated. "She says hi, and do you want to see her room? She has a game system that's fully adaptive for people with motor challenges." Danny's eyes went wide. "Really? That's so cool, can I?" The 2 kids disappeared upstairs, Isabella leading the way, and Danny following on his forearm crutches. Sarah watched them go with tears in her eyes. "You did that," she said quietly to Elena. "You made her confident enough to reach out to other kids like Danny, to want to help them." "Isabella did that herself," Elena said. "She just needed someone to believe she could." They moved to the sitting room where Dante was waiting with coffee and cookies, Mrs. Chen's special recipe. Sarah sat nervously, clearly still uncomfortable with the wealth on display. "So," Sarah said carefully, "the foundation. It's really amazing, Elena. Mom would be so proud." "She would have loved the work," Elena agreed, "helping families who feel invisible, who don't know where to turn. That was always her thing." "And you're happy? Really happy? Because I know when we reconnected I was worried." Sarah stopped, glancing at Dante. "No offense, Mr. Russo, but your reputation is well earned, Dante finished calmly. I won't insult your intelligence by pretending to be something I'm not, Sarah. But I can tell you that your sister is the best thing that's ever happened to my family, and I protect what's mine. Sarah studied him for a moment, then nodded. I believe you. I see how you look at her, like she hung the moon. She did, Dante said simply. For me and Isabella both. Upstairs, they could hear laughter, Isabella and Danny playing some game, communicating despite their different disabilities, just being kids together. Danny needs that, Sarah said softly. Other kids don't always understand. They're nice enough, but they don't get it. The frustration, the feeling different. Isabella can help with that, Elena said. If you're interested, we're starting a monthly meetup at the foundation. Kids with disabilities, their siblings, their parents, just a safe space to be understood. We'd love that, Sarah smiled. And, Elena, I'm sorry. For judging your choices and pushing you away. I was wrong. You were scared for me. That's what big sisters do. Elena reached across the table and took her hand. But I'm okay. Better than okay. I found where I belong. After Sarah and Danny left with Isabella, making Danny promise to come back soon and teach her about basketball, which he loved, the house settled into its evening rhythm. Elena was tucking Isabella into bed when the girl signed something that made her pause. Elena, can I ask you something? Of course, sweetheart. Anything. Do you ever wish you were back in your old life before all this? Elena sat on the edge of the bed, stroking Isabella's hair. She thought about her tiny apartment, her 2 jobs, her careful, small existence. No, she signed honestly. Never. That life was surviving. This life is living, even when it's scary, even then. Because scary means it matters. Means there's something worth being scared for. Elena paused. Do you know what I was most scared of before I found you? Isabella shook her head. Being invisible. Feeling like my life didn't matter. Like I could disappear and no one would notice. That's how I felt. Too, Isabella signed, her eyes wide. In the basement, before you found me. I know. And now? Now, I know I matter. Because you and Papa see me, really see me. And I see you too. You showed me that being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means being scared and doing the important thing anyway. Elena kissed her forehead. Thank you for letting me be brave. After Isabella fell asleep, Elena found Dante on the balcony of their bedroom, looking out at Chicago's lights. She wrapped her arms around him from behind, and he pulled her around to face him. What were you thinking about? She asked. How lucky I am. How close I came to missing this. Dante's hands cupped her face. If you'd walked away that night, in the library, if you'd chosen safety over love, if you'd been sensible instead of brave, then we both would have missed out on something extraordinary. Elena smiled. Good thing I've never been very sensible. Thank God for that. Dante kissed her, slow and sweet and full of promise. I love you, Elena Russo. More every single day. I love you too. You and Isabella and this beautiful, dangerous, perfect life we built. They stood together in the darkness, and Elena thought about the journey that had brought them here. She'd descended into a basement to save a child and emerged with a family. She'd walked into danger and found love. She'd made impossible choices and discovered they were exactly right. Some people would say she was crazy, that falling in love with a mafia boss, raising his traumatized daughter, living in a world where danger lurked around every corner, that none of it made sense. But those people had never felt what it was like to matter, to be essential, to be loved so fiercely that someone would risk everything to keep you safe. Those people had never found their home. Elena had. In a mansion she'd once cleaned. With a man she'd once feared. With a daughter she'd found locked in a cage and set free. She'd saved Isabella that day in the basement. But really, they'd saved each other. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you loved this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.